What's going on, guys? It's Dan here. Welcome to another edition of the DanQ Review Super Show. Today we have a couple of sorry, I was all forgetful there. Anyway, we have a couple of survival/horror games for you in this review. So one of my favorite genres, to be honest with you. I love the horror and survival horror genre in video games. They're a lot of fun to play. So, sorry, I'm adjusting. I should have adjusted before I got down here. But anyway, first game on the list for review is Dead Space 3, alright? Very, well, for me, a game I really look forward to because I've been a fan of the Dead Space series since they came out. Been following them since the very first one. So I was anxious to play this guy for sure. But of course, let's start with the summary of Dead Space 3. Dead Space 3 is available on Xbox 360, PS3, and PC. It is a third-person shooter and survival horror game developed by Visceral Games and published by Electronic Arts. Okay? So, Dead Space 3. Alright, so when the first Dead Space came out, a lot of people were like, they loved the new style. Like, the new, while it was, it was different. You were an engineer sent to investigate what was wrong with the ship, why everything was all of a sudden shut down. You come across a terrible secret of what's going on with this artifact they uncovered. These creatures that spawn from it because of the artifact's influence. There's a lot of backstory here. Dead Space 2 had a great story as well. I like the story. But they tried to change certain elements of the Dead Space series, and they kind of, I can't explain it, but I like to advance on that. What did they do with Dead Space 3? Like most people's initial reaction when they saw the Dead Space trailer or played the demo was, hey, this looks like Lost Planet. It's because you're in. This is a different thing. Now, this is what I want to point out right away. In the first two Dead Space games, you were actually on a ship, like two different ships, okay? For the most part, I want to say that, for the most part, like 90% of the game, you were on these ships, okay? And you never leave them until later on in the game, of course. Now, no. The second one, you pretty much stay on the ship the whole time. Anyway, sidetracked here. So, in this game, well, yes, it's got like an Arctic tundra-like atmosphere for the most part. You're actually switching locations very often in this game, and that's something I really enjoy. There's new environments. There's multiple environments. Now, what do I mean? Well, in the start of the game, you're actually, of course, sent to check on what's happening in this district, in this planet's atmosphere. Really, because you're trying to find the markers, and like you've been doing the past couple games, trying to stop these markers and realize what's really going on, trying to stop these things once and for all, right? First thing you hop in, you fly into the area, you're actually looking in the ships that are around in orbit there, that are, whether they be deserted or broken pieces or whatever the hell it would be. You investigate these ships, and the cool thing is, they introduced a fast travel. Kind of an open world style to this game. I know it sounds really bizarre. It's linear open world, and what I mean is, like I said, they have that fast travel system. Let's take this first environment where you have, you're in the space area. You have a little shuttle you can hop in and go from ship to ship all in the district. That way you can basically load a different level and play them in order that you want. Which brings me to another point. This game introduced optional missions, which gave you, whether they be achievements or, usually it gave you, sorry, I'm lost for words here. It gave you, like, a lot of weapons, a lot of, goods to use for your weapons, upgrades, all those type of things. Basically big loot chests at the end of your optional mission is what you got. And little anything else. Sometimes a rare weapon schematic or something like that. They weren't necessary, but they were kind of neat because you could see kind of a side story as to what happened at this one area. So the optional missions were a neat idea, and they did kind of give you a bit of backstory, because a lot of the times in the other Dead Space games you're given, like, you don't really know what really happened to everybody. You don't know what went down prior to everything happening. Like, you understand how it happened, but you don't really understand, like, who started it, who did this, what were there confrontations between these people, and so on and so forth. And that's what these optional missions kind of did. They gave you a little bit of side content, let you know this is what happened, which kind of led to this main event, which aided in this main event. So the optional missions were good for that, okay? And again, back to my multiple elements. Like, once you were done doing optional missions, like I said, you could jump over and do an optional mission, or you could stay the course and do the main story as well. But you can use that fast travel element in your little shuttle or whatever to get from each mission. And of course, as you progress, you change again. You change missions again. You go from the outside in orbit, in space, down to the planet, which is this Arctic tundra, which is a completely new atmosphere because there's elemental hazards now. You know what I mean? Like for example, there's a few moments where you have to rappel up and down walls, and you have to watch for falling debris. You have to watch for this. You have to watch for maybe some necromorphs who try to attack you. So I thought it was really neat how they incorporated the environment and made it a way, like, gave it a bigger role in the game instead of just something to look at like the past games have been. So the environment played a way bigger role, especially with the amount of places you can go and then the changing. And I really liked that. That was one of my favorite elements, was the fact that you weren't just stuck in a dark, deserted ship that's infested with necromorphs. You know what I mean? Because that's what Dead Space 1 and 2 were both. Yeah, you go to different wings and it's different, but at the same time, you're not really outside. You're not really exploring these elements with these crazy monsters and things like that. That's just my thought, okay? Now, moving on as well. How do I feel about the storyline? Oops, sorry. Just wanted to adjust here. The storyline itself picks up right from where Dead Space 2 left off. Like, you're kind of skipped a few months. It's not directly after, but you learn things about what happened in the last game. Because in the end of the last game, spoiler alert for Dead Space 2 if you haven't played it or seen it, obviously plug your ears for a few minutes, okay? And basically what happens is you escape the ship with Ellie, and a nearly escape with Ellie. And basically that's how it cuts, right? This time, you wake up in your apartment, basically. It's Isaac's apartment on a colony. Yeah, you go from a colony to start with an apartment with no gear, just maybe a basic plasma cutter. Things like that. You find stuff out. You're like, okay, you're brought up to speed really quickly with what happened with Ellie, what's going on with you two, what's going on with this new job. These cops storm in and say, oh, this guy we need Isaac Clarke to do this, that sort of thing. You learn a lot very fast and you're brought up to speed. So there's nothing crazy you're going to miss just from playing it. There's a bit of a gap, like I said, but you're brought up to speed right away. So the fact that they have that, the storyline itself, it was really lengthy. I think this game took me, playing time, I think it was about 15 to 16 hours long of playing time. So that included all the optional missions I did. I didn't even do all the optional missions, keep in mind. I did what I could. Some of them I'd missed, I didn't even see them. But whenever I was given the alert that I had an optional mission available, I'd try and do that first, because I knew it was going to help me with if I was short on health or if I was short on ammo. I could go do that and they'd give you a huge loot chest at the end of it, just to help you in your main story. So the storyline was good, nice length to it. However, I have a couple beefs with the way they did the missions, okay? I'm going to mention right now the optional missions. While I said they were cool that you could get some side content, they actually droned on and they got very, very dull. And what I mean is they reused and recycled environments and locations from the main story and put them in an optional mission with a few different creatures in it. That's about it. And at the end, the goal is always the same. While yeah, you're following this one mini storyline, say what happened here, But the same thing, I remember playing like 2 missions and I was getting really frustrated with them. Because I'm like, you know what? I was just here a couple chapters ago in the main story. This is the exact same thing in reverse. Basically what I mean is instead of starting from point A, you started from point B and you're going back to point A. So you're doing the level in reverse. So you're like, this is boring. I've seen this already. Why would I want to do this again? And the problem with optional missions, also, they're not really worth the reward. At first they are, because you're new to it. You're like, oh, this is an optional mission. That's awesome. What can I get from it? You find out you get some really good swag, basically. You get a lot of Dead Space swag, ammo, weapons, rare schematics, upgrade parts, things like that. And you get your story mode kind of on the side. But as you keep playing, you're like, it's just a grind. Like, honest to God, I don't know how many times they just... Oh my God, they sent enemy after enemy after enemy after enemy. I was like dying and using all my health on these stupid enemies non-stop, over and over again with these enemies. Like, it was spam, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, this is just not even fair. Like, if you could do this on a harder difficulty, you'd be shooting yourself in the head. And by the time you're done, oh look, a loot chest with a few reloadable items. You wasted all your ammo and your health, you just got a little bit of it back again. That's all you really did. So at the end of the day, the optional missions were not really worth it. And sometimes, towards the end of the game, I started doing them, I kept doing them just because I was out of ammo and I needed it going into a major boss or something like that. So I was a little upset with that. I was just like, you know what, while it's giving you more content to do, it's stuff I've just played. Like, it's boring now. I don't need to be spammed with a million enemies in the old environments I just played. You know what I mean? So, unfortunately, the optional missions were kind of tacked on there. At first, when you're playing them, you're like, this is really cool that they decided to do this, and that they give you a little something extra to do, kind of step away and learn something about the people that were there before you that caused all this mess. A little bit of side storyline. But it really doesn't make a difference, because if you didn't do any of the optional missions, you're not missing out on anything story-wise. This just gives you a little bit of backstory on stuff you already know or you've already encountered. So, it's not really worth it. You do get some good schematics, but I rarely use them. And I would like to go to the weapons, the whole new weapon thing that they went with this time. In the first and second Dead Space, they gave you a 4-weapon slot, where you basically have to find the weapon first and obviously pick whatever you choose, right, and go from there. This time they got rid of the 4-weapon slot, gave you 2. Now the difference here is you can actually construct your own weapons with their own attachments and their own upgrades and their own this and that. The idea was really awesome. I'm like, you know what, that's really cool. Maybe, instead of having, okay, let's say for example, you have a pulse rifle, which is basically the automatic rifle, and you also have a line gun. You like to use both, but sometimes switching between those and you're getting attacked by a ridiculous amount of enemies, sometimes that's wasted time that could cause your character to die. In this sense, you have both mounted on a single weapon and just use the alternate fire on that single weapon to use the line gun or the pulse rifle or whatever, right? So whatever weapons you combine. And that's a good idea for that, and the fact that you can upgrade it with custom rounds, like inferno rounds, like incendiary ammo, that sort of thing. Kind of explosive, acidic rounds. Things that maybe improve your stamina, so when you shoot the gun, they cause your enemy to go into a bit of a stasis, instead of actually using your stasis, you know what I mean? So it saves your stasis and it slows them down for you. There's cool little upgrades like that, and that's what I liked about it. The customization did help your gameplay, and it did make things a little easier on you if you knew what to combine. But here's the bad. It's really quite tedious and a little confusing to find out and construct the appropriate weapon that you need. Myself, I basically used the plasma cutter the whole time through. I'm not even kidding you. I mean, the other ones didn't even seem to appeal to me, and when I used them, I'm like, you know what? I don't know if this is right. I don't want to risk testing this one weapon out to find out it's going to suck or I'm not good with it. And it was just unnecessary upgrades. The way they used to do it was you had one weapon, whatever it would be, plasma cutter, line gun, pulse rifle, javelin gun, I can't remember what the chainsaw one is called, but I think it's the slicer or the cutter or something like that. But you had those basic weapons. They did one function, yet they had their own secondary weapon or their own secondary fire that was probably better than stacking the two together. Because if you just did the one, it would become completely nil, and they didn't even have a secondary fire, which was really irritating. Like, let's look at the line gun. I remember line gun from the first and second Dead Space. The primary fire was basically a really large spread out line like beam that basically would sever a large group of enemies' limbs. And the secondary, I'm pretty sure it was basically a ball of energy. And when you tapped the secondary, it would pop out an energy ball and explode, kind of like a landmine, except it would just charge up and explode. So any of the enemies in that area would basically die from it. But now you're combined with these two weapons, single primary fire, which sometimes is not required. And sometimes you need the secondaries of those previous weapon styles to get the job done. So a lot of the times my secondary was barely used, and I barely switched weapons just because, I didn't know what to create. I didn't know what to craft to be the best one. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes there's just too much customization that could end up screwing you over. It was just a little too technical, tedious, and, the whole fact was, what you used to do to upgrade was collect nodes, and you'd find these nodes, they'd be the rare item. And when you found one, that's an upgrade slot for your suit, your weapons, anything like that. Your kinesis, stasis, you could all upgrade that with nodes. And you could basically go on a little tree and eventually level up the whole thing. Like, the whole gun maxed out if you keep going, like, do a new game plus and all that, and the gun has its maxed out. Now you basically unlock these upgrade cards that there's 8 total when you think about it per weapon. 4 slots for the top weapon, 4 for the bottom. Now, doesn't that seem like a step backward? Because what you find may not be good. Like, for example, you'll find one that does, like, okay, let's say 2 plus damage. Increase your damage plus 2. You'll find another one that does, like, 2 reload and maybe minus 1 damage. So now you've lost the damage. Now, you could keep playing all the way through, and on New Game Plus, what you unlocked was the best upgrade cards, and they'd be plus 3, plus 3. So you could find a plus 3 damage combined with a plus 3 reload or whatever. But combining those 4 for one weapon wouldn't necessarily max out your gun. You know what I mean? The nodes made it a little simpler. So the whole weapon craft, while it was a really cool idea that you could have these crazy new looking weapons that made it easier, you didn't have to switch between weapons, you're only down 2 slots. What they should have done is at least kept 4 slots in the game and then combine the weapons. That way you could have a way better arsenal at your disposal instead of the same deal but a step backwards. So really, like I said, I think they should have kept the classic thing, finding the new guns as you went on, and whatever you preferred, you'd use it, right? So unfortunately, the new feature of crafting weapons was a bit of a downfall, in my opinion. Okay? So moving on from that. Alright, let's move on. Enough of that. Alright, what else did I want to say about this game? Okay, so in terms of boss fights, there are a few in the game, but there's a problem with them. They are so ridiculously easy. Like, I had no challenge. When I was getting, you know what, the hardest part of this game was those optional missions when you got spammed by countless enemies. And I'm talking, like, they have a new enemy, it's like a miner enemy with, there's a frozen miner, well, essentially, right? But he's got, like, those, in his hands, they're basically he's got, like, those ice climbing sticks. Those guys will rush you, they're tough to kill, and their attacks are deadly. Imagine getting swarmed by, like, 7 of them all around you. It's annoying. So that part was easy, but when you gave me big bosses, like huge bosses, I'm talking like massive bosses, easy. I screwed up a couple times on maybe the final boss, but really when you thought about it, it was an easy thing to do. And I'm like, I just beat the game. That was easy. That's all I had to do. You know what I mean? With each boss. So the boss fights could have been a little better. A little tougher, you know what I mean? Maybe a little more to them, but they were pretty plain vanilla, and they didn't give you much of a challenge. Unfortunately, the very tedious and annoying optional missions were kind of what gave you the challenge, and the challenge was not much of a challenge. It was a challenge that basically just annoyed you. You know what I mean? It's the same, like, how would you like to basically, For example, one of the most annoying things that they did was you'd be sitting there and you'd be, okay, you have to open this door, but you have to do like this. It was a new style of opening doors. You basically had to hack it, but you had to connect electric pulses all together to make the door restore power. You'd clear out the room before you even started. You'd connect one, still good to go. You'd connect a second one, then all of a sudden a wave of 30 comes out of nowhere. Like, what? Where'd those come from? Like, what are you putting them for? Like, you can't, like, they just make the optional missions long and droned out just to add length to the game. Okay, unfortunately. Now, there's one final point I would like to make about Dead Space 3. They added something else. Now, in Dead Space 2, they added a multiplayer, a versus multiplayer game type. And it wasn't that great. It was okay, but it really wasn't something to write home about. Now, in this game, they took that out, and they added a new element, co-op. You have a new character to play with. And the cool thing about co-op, while I never got to do a full gameplay recording of the co-op, just because of time constraint, I did experience it. I tried it out myself. And the co-op, while you're like, no, the game's meant to be played single, that way it's scarier. You'd be surprised how much fun co-op is. It adds a lot to the story, because you have this new character who has some things going in his head as well, just like Isaac. You know, he's messed up in different ways, but he's messed up nonetheless, and you learn a lot about his backstory, what he's really going through when you play as him. And it adds more to the game when you're playing through it, so there's certain elements of the game that make more sense if there's a co-op partner there, and not so much if it's single. So you feel like this game is meant to be played co-op, and I think it really should. If you have the option, do it. It'll probably make the game way more enjoyable. You probably won't get swarmed as badly when you're doing those optional missions. You'll have more people be eyes at the back of your head, for example, and add an extra gun, a few guns to help you gun them down. Yeah, it's a little better on you. So the co-op story, way more interesting, new characters. You'd be surprised. So if people are a little surprised about the co-op, like, I don't know, try it. The co-op will be a good game. Like, it'll make you feel better about, it's a better experience. But I would say you could still play single player than co-op to see the differences between the two. I would recommend doing that, because you'll get a different experience. Trust me, you will. So, the co-op was a good idea. I think it was smart. A lot of the things that, like, it had a good story. I did like the actual storyline. It made me angry, it made me sad, it made me happy, made me laugh. There was many different emotions that were tossed around this storyline. It was lengthy, however, at the expense of throwing in repetitive, not needed optional missions with a new system of crafting weapons that really kind of hurts the game in a way. It's not as simple, not as streamlined, a little more complex and tedious, and you aren't always getting the best weapon out of it, while it makes it think that, and it's like, oh, this awesome combined weapon actually might screw you over because you combined the wrong two weapons for a certain circumstance. So that's a downside. But I'm glad they don't have a multiplayer in this. It wasn't needed. The co-op was a better change. So for a full game like this, I'd say I'm happy with it. It was a good game. New enemies, and new environments were really awesome. Just the whole new style of gameplay, but it still feels like classic Dead Space to me. So I was happy with this game overall. However, there's a few things that make it really annoying. I'm sure a lot of these problems will go away if you do a co-op. But at the same time, a lot of people are like, no, I like this nostalgic factor. I like the fact that Isaac's by himself. He's got no one to help. You're basically surviving one level at a time. It depends how you look at it. So therefore, I'm going to give Dead Space 3 a 7.5 out of 10. A great score. I do recommend this title to anybody. A few things, like if you're playing through, don't necessarily do the optional missions if you don't feel like it. If you have a co-op partner, by all means, I say do it, because there's actually exclusive co-op bonus missions, like optional missions exclusive to co-op, that I couldn't access from my single-player run-through of the game. So it adds more. The co-op adds more, and I strongly recommend people try out the co-op of this game, and also do the single-player as well. Try both, solo and co-op, to see the differences, the difficulties, that sort of thing. So 7.5 out of 10. For Dead Space 3. Great title. I strongly recommend you guys pick it up. Alright? Now, coming up next on the list of our survival horror review is Aliens, Colonial Marines. Okay, lots to be said about this game. Very controversial. But before we get into this, let's read the summary off for you. Alright, Aliens, Colonial Marines. It's available on Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, PC, and it's actually available for Wii U, but not yet. It got delayed till March. How stupid are these people? I'll explain in a bit. But the Wii U's version, which was the one that was supposed to be better and way above its time, the fact that it incorporates the new gamepad and new elements there, released afterwards, okay? But anyways, it is a first-person shooter and a survival horror game. I like to say that. It is developed by Gearbox Software and published by Sega. Okay, now Colonial Marines, Aliens. Now, before I even touched it, people are telling me, Dan, there's a lot of mixed reviews about this game. I mean, I don't know what to think. I want you to play it and let me know. I want to see your review and your thoughts. Well, I don't listen to mainstream reviewers because a lot of mainstream reviewers gave this game a 2. They gave it a 4. Things like that. So it's up and down. There's some 5s, there's some 6s, there's some 7s, I think. I'm not sure. But overall, it's an up and down game. So you know what? I'm like, let me do this myself. I'll play it myself, let you guys know. Now, myself being a fan of the Alien movie franchise, I had an interest in this game. Picking it up, there were some of the classic characters mentioned in it, and you actually see a couple of them from the actual Aliens film, the one from 1986, I believe, the second film in the Alien franchise, which was one of the biggest masterpieces, or at least the biggest film, or the best film to a lot of people in the Alien franchise. A lot of people will tell you that. A lot of people will be strong behind that. So, what is this game? How does it work in the relation to Aliens? Well, basically it takes place 17 weeks after the events of Aliens from 1986 film. And there's a few things about this game I understand on both sides. Now, let's start out with something that's, well, a little minor, but it's not crazy. Like, I don't base games off this, but I'd like it to be said. This game had a very outdated look to graphics. Now, here's the thing. I know a lot of people are like, Dan, graphics don't always mean good unless graphics don't make a game good. It's what the content is. And I agree. Like, take a look at Minecraft. It has intentional pixelated stuff, but it's a masterpiece to people. People love Minecraft. But its graphics aren't supposed to be like crystal clear, perfect. It looks like you're looking in real life. No, that's not the point of it. So, the thing is, though, I immediately compared the graphical style of this game to the original Fear, like when it was called Fear First Encounter Assault Recon. Now, if you guys have ever played Fear, that game came out in what year? 2004 or 5? Not sure. I want to say 2004. It first came out on PC for 2004. That sounds right. So it's an older game. We're in 2013 now, you guys. That's a long time. Like, that's a big difference. And when your graphics look like that, it's kind of like, it makes you think, what are you doing here? You're cutting corners. But the thing is, like I said, I wasn't gonna compare my game to the graphical style, just because, you know what? I'm gonna see how the gameplay is. The gameplay could kick its ass, and I'll be like, fine, sacrifice the graphical appearance as long as the gameplay and the story are awesome. Here's the thing about the gameplay. It's pretty, like I said, plays like an older game. Like, it feels like Fear as well. Not saying Fear was bad. I loved the original Fear. Difference was that game came out in 2004 or whatever it was. This is 2013. You expect breakthroughs. You expect improvements in the gameplay. And the gameplay was really sketchy and a little loose. Like, it was very, I can't explain how exactly it feels. But when you're playing this game, a lot of the combat is very just generic. You're shooting your enemies. You're, like, for example, you could be shooting an enemy. It doesn't have the best feel to it. It doesn't have the best damage. Like, it doesn't seem real. It seems too fake, even for games. I know games are obviously, they're not real. They're supposed to, to be a form of escaping. And yet, this game doesn't really capture it. This game was supposed to capture the fear of aliens. And I didn't feel that through this game. Yes, you threw the aliens at me. That was awesome. The fact that you had all these different types of aliens that everyone loved. Like the different classes. You had the soldiers, the spitters, the lurkers. The queen was awesome. I loved the queen in this game. They had the boilers. There was so many different classes of enemies that you'll know. And they all do their own thing. But here's something that I was extremely disappointed with. you were actually facing the aliens about 40% of the time. I'm not even kidding you. 40% of the time you fight aliens. The other 60% you're fighting, sorry, I gotta refresh my memory. It's been a long time. I just played it, but I don't really recall. I can't remember where I first read it. Hold on. Here we go. I forget. Oh yeah, Wayland Yutani. I'm sorry, that name slipped my mind. The Wayland Yutani Corp is the one enemy you're fighting more than the aliens. I'm not kidding you. It's mainly humans on human battle with the occasional alien thrown in. Yes, you'll have some alien exclusive moments, but it just doesn't feel like an Aliens game to me. It feels like, okay, you took the characters and the creatures from Alien and threw them in as a variable. And the variable is basically the one where, let's take a look at Halo, for example. You're fighting the Covenant as a main enemy, right? And you have the Flood in there as a variable enemy who's not on either side, and they're everybody's enemy. That's what this kind of feels like, but the problem is, the aliens are supposed to be your main enemy. You're supposed to be fighting them, not this other corporation, not the Wayland Yutani Corporation. You're supposed to be fighting the aliens and surviving the aliens. That's what I've always felt. I know Wayland Yutani has been a huge part of Aliens. I know that, okay? But the problem is, I wanted to fight aliens. I wanted to see crazy situations where the aliens were trapping you in or whatever, but there was no real fear here. There was no fear of the aliens for me. And I just felt like the nostalgic factor, the fact that I liked the Aliens franchise, it was lost. It just didn't seem like traditional Aliens to me. It just felt like, okay, it's like they built it around the aliens. They didn't even call it aliens. They're like, oh, let's fight this corporation. You know what, man? I think we might make a little bit more money if we, maybe base it off an alien game. You know what I mean? Like, make it an alien game. Like, throw in the aliens in there, and then just we'll keep the storyline as we had it, but work it around the aliens. I mean, I know that sounds kind of bizarre and weird that I'm saying that, but it really does feel that way to me. And I was a little like, a little bleh, And the other thing that goes about it, this game is not long. I think I beat the campaign in approximately 7 hours. 6.5, 7. That makes sense, right? Yeah, that makes sense. Approximate. Each level was anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes, and there's 11 chapters in the entire game, with the last chapter only being 10 minutes because I beat the main boss in turbo mode. So it doesn't feel like Aliens. It feels like it was mashed together really quickly, which is really bizarre because they delayed this game. It was supposed to come out last year in October, I believe. Then it got postponed to February. And it still looked like as if it was halfway done. And they're just like, quick, we've been sleeping for the past 3 months. We need you to quickly put it out for next Sunday. Or for next Tuesday. How are we going to do that, sir? I don't fucking know. Just do it. You know what I mean? That's kind of like what it was. And it just didn't feel like it was really tried that hard. But here's the thing. The game wasn't terrible. I actually kind of enjoyed myself when I was playing it. While it wasn't, I stopped looking at it. Once I realized what it was, I stopped looking at it as an Aliens game. And I played it as a game on its own. Like just how it was. And I let that become its own thing. So, in terms of the campaign, it's average length, I suppose. Nothing really over the top. You get some new weapons, but they don't really do anything crazy. Like I said, I didn't even really figure out how to switch weapons in the game because it wasn't very clear. I know people are like, Dan, there is an instruction booklet right on your case, that you always complain about, you can't read the controls. Well, yeah, that's true. Let me just look. Let me just see something. Yeah, you probably had, I think you had to hold Y, or at least this is the 360 version, so Y or triangle or whatever you want to call, to switch it. But they don't ever tell you that. So I didn't think of that. I thought you'd select it in the weapons screen. So I'm sorry, but I was just trying to go by how it was. So this game isn't shite. Like, it's not, like, I'm not gonna, like, it wasn't a waste of time or money. I actually, like I said, I enjoyed it for what it was. I took it and I'm like, you know what, it may not be an Aliens feeling game, but it's got them there, it does the references, and I respect that. But for the amount of time they had, the fact that they delayed it, that's pretty insulting that they come up with something like this. Now let's go to the multiplayer really quick. What's the multiplayer like? Nothing special. Honestly, each game type, there's 4 different game types. There's your basic team deathmatch. You have a game called Extermination, which is basically an attack and defend, where the humans have to destroy these egg colonies, like egg clusters, excuse me, and the aliens have to defend them, prevent that. There's an escape one, which I thought was pretty cool. Basically, it's like kind of story-based, where the humans have to get from point A to point B, and you're constantly, as aliens, trying to stop them from doing the 100% of the level, right? Kind of reminded me of Left 4 Dead style in a way. So I liked that one. I thought that was a pretty cool idea. And then finally there was a game type called Survivor, which basically was just survive, like, until the time ran out. So, but really behind each one, it was the same repetitive gameplay, nothing so crazy. Yeah, you can upgrade your characters, you can change the appearances, you can add new abilities, but the fact was the multiplayer and the matchmaking wasn't very good. Like, the matchmaking, once again, grouped a bunch of newbies with a bunch of people who've been playing the game for like non-stop since it came out. Like, I was like a level, because of my campaign, I was like a level 15 Marine because of the campaign that I beat. And I was a level 0 alien. And you're putting me against people who are level 50 on both sides. Level 50 alien, level 50 Marine. And all the rest of my teammates were like that. They were like level 4, level 3, level 5 alien, and like level 15 to 20 Marine. So we were like on average, okay, we just completed campaign, let's go on to the multiplayer. These other people were people who have been playing multiplayer and campaign 9, 10 times over, getting everything, and playing the game for hours upon end. It just didn't seem fair. Like, I mean, well, I did get a few wins in there. I got my ass beat a few times, quite a few times. So that fact didn't really make me want, like, the fact that the gameplay wasn't even that good didn't make me want to keep going. Like, I only played a little bit of the multiplayer when I'm like, you know what, I've basically played all I need to play from the first game mode. It's cool that they threw in different variety, but it's all the same. It really is. So it's unfortunate because I had high hopes for this game when I was like, oh, I can't wait for Aliens because I love that movie franchise. I want to play as an alien. I want to shoot. I want to be hunted by an alien and fight my way out of it. And I was rarely scared. Like, it didn't have the feel, the scare, nothing like that. So to me, this game is average. It feels like Aliens, the brand was slapped on there just to make a few extra bucks. If they reduced the price of this game, I think that would have been a good idea. Like, it was a full $60 retail release. If they made this game like $40, bang, there you go. You have a decent game for $40. But that extra $20, it's like, what? For $60? You look at other games who release for the same price, they give you way better content. You're just like, how are these guys able to get away with it? You know what I mean? Just because of the name? Just because of that Aliens name, they get to make a shit ton of money off it. But I don't agree with all these reviewers. I don't. The game is not a 2. No way. I had fun with it. But it's not anything to really write home about. It's nothing special. It's run-of-the-mill. It's pretty average. It's like an FPS. It's a generic FPS feel. But the fact that I like Aliens and I like the space style and the space shooters and things like that, it kept my interest a little more. You know what I mean? Because certain things, I love the space environments, which is why I love Mass Effect so much, the Mass Effect trilogy. I love that series just because the environments are so flippin' awesome to me. Like, okay, I'm going to tell you guys something right now. I wanted, like, for a long time, I wanted to be an astronomer. I'm not even kidding you. I thought space and stars were so flippin' cool. That's just me, but that's probably why I enjoyed this as little as I did. I'm sure if people didn't like Aliens, like hated the franchise, I don't know why they played if they did that, but if they weren't a huge fan of the franchise, they just wanted a good survival horror, they were going to be disappointed. And I'll get that. That's probably where those reviewers who gave it like a 2 came from. But I'm going to give the game my own rating. Not by far not a game that's really, really worth your money. At the same time, if you're a fan of the franchise, you may still want to play it and experience it. So therefore, I'm going to give Aliens Colonial Marines a 5.5 out of 10. Nothing really worth it, but it is a quick thing. If there's still rentals like GameFly or whatever, do it over GameFly just to get the experience, or just to enjoy like the Aliens name. But at the same time, you really just go watch the movies again. Like you'd probably be better off. So they didn't really do the best job, and I was kind of disappointed. So James Cameron should have directed, or should have helped develop this game. Maybe that would have helped a little bit. But anyways, guys, so that's it for the DanQ Review Super Show for today. My little survival horror aliens creature review show today. So hope you enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts on the games I played. Let me know your thoughts on the scores I give it, what you would give the game, your experiences with it, your trials, your tribulations, your fun, your accomplishments, whatever. I want to hear what you guys came across in these two games. So thanks again for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it allowed you to make a decision, or helped you make a decision what you want to do with it. So thanks again, guys. Have a good one. Take it easy, and we'll see you very soon for more gameplay and more reviews to come. So take it easy, guys. Have a good one.